In the Mood for Love, written and directed by Kar-wai, it's a very lyrical and subtle romance film that concerns itself more with creating a mood, an atmosphere, rather than following a traditional plot itself. The story takes place in 1962 in Hong Kong, mainly around an apartment building where owners rent out rooms within their own apartments to other people as well. And so, in one apartment, he moves in with his wife. In the other apartment next door, she moves in with her husband. Both of our protagonists work long hours often and so are away from home. And slowly they, and we as the audience as well, begin to suspect that their other halves are actually having an affair right under their noses. And that suspicion is as good as confirmed when the husband leaves for a business trip, and at the same time, the wife from the other apartment supposedly leaves to visit her mother, but we can infer that they're actually spending time together away, which then pushes the man and the woman left at home closer together. They begin talking, they begin to know each other, get closer together, but decide outright that this relationship will be only platonic, that they will not follow in the footsteps of the people that hurt them and engage in extramarital romance. But feelings are feelings, and as may be expected, they will develop regardless of any promises made. So the plot is fairly simple, and as I said, it really isn't the main focus of the film. The intention was clearly to create this really strong atmosphere of growing love that's doomed before it can even be acknowledged properly, of two people getting closer and closer despite their intentions, of this conflict of heart versus mind, feelings against reason. It's an incredibly visual piece with splendid camera work and many of the shots being just like beautiful paintings. Very often the director places his actors in specific spots of the frame, especially in relation to one another, which really tells us what's going on between them in a visual way without the need for many words. I love the use of environment to help accentuate that, the way that things like door frames, bars, mirrors, and so on are incorporated into the film. Also, the interesting thing is we never actually see the husband or the wife on screen. The wife we actually do a few short times, but only from behind. And other than that, it's just their voices, and it makes it feel like they're absent from the film, from the story, even when they're still there physically, which I thought was a brilliant way to introduce this idea of fading relationships, of emotional distance between the people in them. The film also has extraordinary use of color. I don't exactly know how this was done, but the palette does make the film look like it was made in the same period that the action takes place, in the 1960s, and not 40 years later. Then on top of that, we have careful use of slow motion shots, often coupled with beautiful score that incorporates several jazz tunes. Also, I do have to mention that Maggie Cheung, who plays the woman, is absolutely stunning in the film, and she wears these specific types of dresses with short sleeves, very high neck, and colorful patterns on them. And apparently she wears like 30 different dresses over the course of the film, from what I read, and it's just so aesthetically pleasing to have her displaying them on screen. And all of this together creates something that's somewhat bittersweet, somewhat sad, somewhat intriguing. There is an amount of nostalgia and regret and sorrow in the general feel of the film as well. Particularly regret, I think. Thoughts of what may be, what may have been, but never was. The one thing that was slightly off to me was the final chapter, the last 20 minutes or so. I thought it was a little stretched out and tonally. It was tonally slightly different in comparison to what came before it, but having said that, I can see why it was done this way. What was the intent behind it? And even if I didn't particularly like the result, I think that intent was in fact realized. So it's hard to hold it against the film. All in all, it's a pretty good movie. It is quite unique in its storytelling, so I can see some people being turned off or bored by it. But if you can just immerse yourself in the atmosphere, it is very rewarding.